The journey to Qingcheng Mountain was over 100 li. The surroundings of Yizhu cities had well-developed transportation and many main roads. There was also an official road leading to Qingcheng Mountain. In his previous world, this bit of distance could be covered in less than 2 hours. However, it was hard to cover it within a day no matter how fast one walked in this era. Having the official road indeed made it convenient for travelers. Otherwise, even more time would be spent finding and navigating the mountain paths. To arrive early, one must depart early. Xianxia had already begun packing his traveling bag. At this time, there was another knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Xianxia went to open the door, and standing outside was Constable Luo. Greetings, mister. Xianxia was somewhat surprised and looked down. Constable, these are. The persimmons in my hometown are ripe. Yesterday, my family sent some over, and they're very sweet, although they don't look great. We have too many to finish at home, so I brought some over for you to taste too. Constable Luo held a woven bamboo basket filled with lantern-like persimmons. There aren't many, just enough for a taste. I hope you don't mind that there are too few. This constable really knew how to choose his words. How could Xianxia refuse? Thus he accepted the basket, picked out the small lantern-like persimmons one by one, and displayed them on the stone table. Allowing Lady Calico to sniff them closely, Xianxia returned the empty bamboo basket to Constable Luo. Thinking deeply, he said, Thank you, Constable Luo. However, I have another favor to ask. Please feel free to ask, mister. Yesterday, I had the fortune to befriend Prefect Yu at the Gulan Wash. The prefect has already given me an ink stick and then a felt blanket. It would be impolite to refuse such kindness, but I felt indebted. After much thought, I decided to give him a painting as a return gift. However, I have to rush over to visit my master's old friend on Qingcheng Mountain, and it's not convenient for me to go over. I recall that you pass by the prefect's official residence on your way to work daily, so I would like to ask you to deliver it for me since it's convenient for you. Prefect Yu. Constable Luo was immediately taken aback. That was a senior official of a prefecture, a high-ranking frontier official. Yizhu was a large prefecture in Great Yan, governing an area equivalent to 2 or 3 regular prefectures. It was economically wealthy and flourishing culturally, making the Yizhu prefect even more important than other prefects. But Prefect Yu was not just any prefect. Prefect Yu had a great reputation for his literary and political achievements. His appointment to Yizhu was actually a demotion. Compared to such a prominent figure, Luo was just an unimportant constable who had inherited his position through his family. Even just becoming acquainted with such a person could bring many benefits. This wasn't asking him to help deliver a gift. It was clearly good fortune that Xianxia was bestowing. I will definitely deliver it. Constable Luo promptly accepted the scroll. Deliver it on the way to work. He will make a special trip right now. Thank you, Chief Luo. I should thank you, mister. Constable Luo carefully took the scroll and left. Xianxia stood at the door watching his departing figure, motionless and lost in thought. It seemed he was getting increasingly entangled. Xianxia originally did not want too many entanglements with other people, for reasons he couldn't quite explain. Unexpectedly, he found himself increasingly involved with others after residing in the city for 2 or 3 months, despite living in seclusion. It seemed unavoidable. Just like asking Constable Luo for help today. Xianxia originally didn't want to do it, yet he didn't want not to do it. It was really a dilemma worth contemplating. After much reflection, there was only one answer. Perhaps his way of thinking was wrong to begin with. This journey after descending the mountain was meant to involve interactions with people, or perhaps part of its very meaning was derived from such interactions. Taoist priest, are you dead? Not yet. Oh, Lady Calico had been watching him for a long time and sighed in relief. Why do you say that? I saw that you weren't moving. I was just thinking. Thinking. Let's go. Let's go. Xianxia still had some distracting thoughts in his mind. However, he took his traveling bag and letter and walked towards the city gates along with Lady Calico. He thought as he walked, and things became clearer. Once he had thought things through, he felt completely refreshed. Only then did he notice someone had planted osmanthus flowers, filling half the city with fragrance. The road did not seem long anymore. Speaking of Qingcheng Mountain, it was indeed famous as a Taoist mountain in Yizhu and throughout the entire southwestern Great Yan. However, Qingcheng Mountain was vast and well-known, attracting many recluses who built temples or cottages on the mountain. Although the Taoist skills and cultivation levels of these recluses varied, most of them had neither cultivation nor Taoist skills. They simply admired the Taoist way. However, there were indeed many temples on the mountain. From the foot to halfway up the mountain, there were reportedly dozens of temples of various sizes. However, the temple Song Yu intended to visit was not one of those few who were the largest, the most famous, or the oldest temples. It was the mid-sized Fuking Temple, which was halfway up the back of the mountain. One could tell from its name that it was probably a legitimate Taoist temple. Words like Fu and Qing were commonly used in Taoist temple names. Names lacking Taoist charm like Hidden Dragon Temple were non-mainstream. Such temples were either too ancient, having been named before these naming conventions became customary, or not legitimate. Both applied to Hidden Dragon Temple. It was both ancient and not legitimate. Fuking Temple's connection with Hidden Dragon Temple dated back to Song Yu's master's master. At that time, his master's master was traveling around the world like Song Yu now, and met the future owner of Fuking Temple soon after leaving the mountain. After his master returned from his travels to take over Hidden Dragon Temple, the Fuking Temple owner would visit Hidden Dragon Temple almost every year. He would usually also bring along his disciples and students to exchange cultivation insights and ask for guidance on magical mysteries. After the owner passed away, his disciples continued the tradition of visiting. This relationship was maintained until Song Yu's master's generation, and now it has continued to Song Yu's generation. At least so far, Song Yu still remembered Fuking Temple. Fuking Temple also visited annually, so the bond remained. Thus, he could ask for their help in delivering the letter. In this era with high mountains and long rivers, although there was a postal system, it was not open to commoners, making communication difficult. Sometimes, a letter was indeed worth a fortune. However, Song Yu had never been to Fuking Temple. He would have to walk slowly and ask for directions along the way. Fortunately, Song Yu had great patience, and in addition he had Lady Calico's company. Thus, each step of the journey was remembered clearly and full of meaning. Halfway through the journey, good things kept happening. First, an old man driving an ox cart saw that he was a Taoist walking alone and gave him a lift. The ox pulling the cart had delivered vegetables to the city in the morning and was already tired. Its owner felt compassion for it, so he let it walk slowly on the way back with the empty cart. It was about the same speed as Song Yu's pace, but it allowed him to save some energy. Not long after bidding the old man farewell, he encountered a merchant caravan moving much faster than the ox cart. Seeing him in Taoist robes, they stopped to ask about him and then gave him another lift. Surprisingly, they reached the foot of Qingcheng Mountain by evening. However, it was too late to ascend the mountain, so Song Yu had to find a Taoist temple at the foot of the mountain. He presented his ordination certificate to prove his identity and respectfully stated his purpose in coming. The owner allowed him to stay in the guest room for the night. In the evening, the owner even brought down some cured meat and prepared a good meal for him, although the bragging and drinking session during the meal was hard for Song Yu to handle. \\\\. Yidu, Prefect Yu's official residence. Prefect Yu stood with his hands behind his back, in front of a newly mounted painting that had been hung up. The painting was simple. A few brushstrokes depicting a tree trunk and branches, without showing the top or bottom, and a few random splashes of cinnabar representing red plum blossoms. On the tree was a cat delineated with diluted ink in a very freehand style. There was nothing else. Prefect Yu was a cultured person with considerable skills in painting. Though he found the painting simple and the technique unremarkable, it had an inexplicable charm. The simply depicted cat was unexpectedly lifelike. The more he looked, the more lifelike it became. After staring at it for a long time, he actually felt sometimes that the cat seemed to be moving, turning its head, blinking, or raising its head to admire the flowers. Yet, upon closer inspection, it was the same as before. This painting had a wondrous charm, especially since it was a gift from the Taoist priest. Thus Prefect Yu had it mounted and hung in his room that afternoon. Something miraculous happened. After cold dew and frost descends, it was start of winter. Not only were the city's residents anxious, but even the mice in the prefect's residence were quite restless. They often scurried around the house, making a lot of noise at night. Unfortunately, the prefect was able to manage the city's residents, but he found himself at a loss when it came to these little creatures sharing his residence. It gave him quite a headache. After hanging up that painting, it was surprisingly quiet for the entire night. There was not a single sound. Prefect Yu thought he might have slept soundly and missed the noise. Yet after asking his wife and the servants, they all said that the previous night had been peaceful, as if the mice had collectively gone on vacation. Prefect Yu was even more secretly amazed. Even the court's state preceptor might not possess such abilities. Chapter 29, Visiting a Friend at Fuking Temple. The fog was thick at the foot of the mountain, and the room was damp. The old quilt felt cold as iron, so Song Yu didn't sleep very well. He was accustomed to going to bed early and rising early. If the bedding was comfortable, he could laze a bit longer. However, with a cold quilt, there was no reason to stay in bed. It was better to get up and head up the mountain early. So he got up decisively. As he stepped out, he encountered the temple owner leading the young disciples for their morning lesson. The diligent disciples had already boiled hot water. After exchanging morning greetings, Song Yu washed up simply. Then he respectfully thanked them and bid farewell to them. He had intended to offer some money to cover expenses for the food and lodging, but the temple owner declined, so he didn't insist. This was the difference between the Buddhist temples and Taoist temples in Great Yan. It was convenient to lodge at a Buddhist temple, but it was customary to offer money. Staying at a Taoist temple was harder, but if the owner liked you and agreed to your request, they wouldn't accept money most of the time. They would even entertain you with good food and drink. Song Yu was actually more accustomed to the former. He asked the temple owner for directions to Fuking Palace. After getting the answer, he set off with Lady Calico up the mountain. The road was a small stone-paved trail. It was lightly frosted, and he left footprints with each step. He brushed aside dew and cobwebs as he walked. Before noon, he had already found Fuking Temple. In this era, there were no phones, and Song Yu didn't know the trick of sending messages by paper crane, so he had to visit in person. Ascending the steps, he could already hear pensive Taoist singing. He knocked lightly with the ring door knocker, and soon a young boy opened the door. He saw that Song Yu was wearing a Taoist robe, but he did not recognize him. The young boy greeted him respectfully. "You seem unfamiliar, Taoist master." "I am Song Yu from Hidden Dragon Temple, disciple of Taoist Duoxing. I'm here to visit a friend." "May I ask who you are visiting? I'll go inside and inform them." "Senior Taoist brother Guanghuazi," Song Yu stated. "You can just say that Song Yu from Hidden Dragon Temple has come to visit." "Senior Taoist brother." The young boy blinked. Guanghuazi was the current owner of Fuking Temple, and he was already over 60 years old. He usually interacted with temple owners and teachers from the other major temples on the mountain, all white-haired masters. The young boy found it surprising that this young Taoist priest, who was at most in his 20s, would address the temple owner as Senior Taoist brother. The young Taoist boy was very young and had probably just entered the temple. Although he hadn't heard of Hidden Dragon Temple before, he didn't dare to slight the visitor. He told Song Yu to wait for a moment and hurriedly ran inside. Not long after, the Taoist singing inside stopped. Then came the ear-splitting sound of the welcoming bell. Dong! Lady Calico trembled with each ring. Very soon, there was the sound of chaotic and hurried footsteps from inside. When the door was opened again, a group of Taoists stood before him. Lady Calico looked up and stared. Leading the group was Guanghuazi, who was white-haired but had a rosy complexion with no wrinkles. He led a group of middle-aged Taoists to welcome Song Yu. Upon reaching him, he first bowed, then smiled broadly. "Long time no see, Taoist friend." "Senior Taoist brother, you look healthy." "I'm getting worse year by year." Guanghuazi hurriedly welcomed Song Yu inside. "Come in quickly, it's very cold on the mountain." "It is indeed somewhat chilly." "There's a fire inside." "Perfect." Song Yu tried not to stand on ceremony in order to maintain the friendship passed down through 2 or 3 generations. The party walked inside the temple together. Behind them were about a dozen middle-aged Taoists and even more younger ones. The young disciples were at the back, so it was hard to tell how many there were. Overall, it seemed that Fuking Temple was gradually flourishing. Other than the young disciples, the others knew the name of Hidden Dragon Temple. Some showed respect and some showed friendliness towards Song Yu. Some constantly stole glances at him or Lady Calico. The older ones stayed silent, and the younger ones didn't dare speak up, so only Guanghuazi and Song Yu chatted as they walked. "Have you left to travel?" "My master finally drove me out," Song Yu laughed. "I happened to pass through Yidu and am staying there for a while. I thought I would come over to visit your cave dwelling before winter." "Ha ha," Guanghuazi laughed, and then sighed suddenly. "Time flies. I remember the first time I saw you, you were still in your swaddling clothes. The first time I followed my master to Yinyang Mountain, your temple only had Taoist elder Duoxing and Taoist elder Hayu. I was only in my 20s then, and now so many years have passed in the twinkling of an eye. Time waits for no one." "And this is..." Guanghuazi seemed to have finally noticed the calico cat following Song Yu. He showed no sign of disdain, although she was only a cat. "This is Lady Calico, my traveling companion." "So you're Lady Calico, greetings." "Meow." Lady Calico stood on her hind legs and returned the greeting. The temple entrance still had couplets on it. They read, "Virtue is the greatest treasure. It is inexhaustible for a lifetime. Treat the heart as a fertile field. It can be cultivated for more than 100 generations. Song Yu stood at the door and silently read the couplets once through as usual. Once inside, they gathered around the stove to make tea. Guanghuazi called over all the Fuking Temple Taoists in their 20s and 30s to introduce them to Song Yu one by one. These people will take over Fuking Temple in the future, and Song Yu was the sole heir to Hidden Dragon Temple. Therefore, the continuation of this relationship will be dependent on these young people. Guanghuazi then instructed people to fetch meat, kill chickens, catch fish, buy lamb, pick vegetables, and buy wine. He even called a few young disciples to go and pick some of the Chinese gooseberries on the mountain that had just ripened. The Taoist priests were quite skilled at cooking, probably because they usually had plenty of leisure time to hone their culinary skills in. After lunch, they played and sang Taoist songs. The Taoist songs of Qingcheng Mountain were very famous. They were sung in the local dialect and had already formed their own distinct style. Song Yu sat and quietly enjoyed the performance. Lady Calico had trouble enjoying it, though, and fell asleep on her prayer cushion. After appreciating the Taoist songs, they sat together and chatted. Don't assume that monks only debate scriptures when they gather or that Taoists only discuss Taoism when they get together. It's like two students discussing their studies when they get together. It happens, but not often. Most of the time, they chatted about light-hearted topics like ordinary people. How long did it take you to walk from Yidu? Someone asked. Song Yu replied honestly. I set out early yesterday morning and reached the foot of the mountain by nightfall. The temple owner of Luking Temple at the foot of the mountain kindly let me stay the night, and I came up this morning. Immediately, someone opposite remarked, You're a good walker. Song Yu looked up and saw a familiar Taoist priest. He was Guanghuazi's disciple and had been visiting Hidden Dragon Temple the past few years. He was probably one of the contenders for the position of the next temple owner. At this time, someone else said, Taoist friend Song is the heir to Hidden Dragon Temple. Walking more than 100 li a day is naturally nothing difficult. This was another Taoist priest who had visited Hidden Dragon Temple. In Taoism, seniority was not strictly observed between Taoists from different temples, and Taoists were generally very casual anyway. As long as there was no significant difference in age or status, it was fine to address one another as Taoist friends. Thus they could address Song Yu as Taoist friend and not treat him specially as a senior even though they were Guanghuazi's disciples. I was lucky and met a group of traveling merchants who gave me a lift, Song Yu said honestly. No matter what, you must be tired from the journey. I've already asked Chayan to prepare the best room for you. Please rest here for a few days, said the first Taoist priest. Senior brother is right. You have never been to Qingcheng Mountain before, and you should let us show you our hospitality, another Taoist priest added. Please do not hesitate to stay, and tomorrow I'll have Yingfeng take you up Qingcheng Mountain and show you around. It's also nice to appreciate the autumn scenery. Song Yu thought for a moment and looked at Guanghuazi. The old Taoist beamed and changed the subject. The temple owner of Luking Temple was kind enough to host our honored guest. We should present a gift in return. The two middle-aged Taoists immediately agreed. Song Yu felt a bit helpless. He turned and asked Lady Calico, What do you think? I think it's a good idea. Everyone's eyes brightened at the voice. Those who had cultivated Taoist arts had naturally long sensed something extraordinary about the Calico cat, but they had only vaguely noticed and could only judge from the details. Only when the Calico cat opened her mouth and spoke could they confirm that she was really a little cat demon. However, most of them were not overly amazed as they had seen various supernatural creatures before. Only the younger disciples with inadequate experience stared wide-eyed. Song Yu said, Since Lady Calico also wants to stay a few more days, we will accept your hospitality. Great! Immediately, a Taoist instructed his disciples to go and catch more fish. Thus Song Yu and the cat stayed. The guest room was much better than the one at Luking Temple last night. It was spacious, neat, and bright with new bedding, etc. It wasn't that Luking Temple had slighted Song Yu, they simply had limited resources. Fuking Temple was far larger and much more powerful compared to Luking Temple. The guest room they were staying in was the best they had, as was the one at Luking Temple, so there was no difference on that point. In the evening, two young Taoist priests came to look for him. A male Taoist named Yingfeng and a female Taoist named Chayan. Yingfeng was tall, gentle, and courteous, with a bright and cheerful smile. His manner of speech exuded a mysterious Taoist charm. He was probably a prodigious talent in Taoist cultivation, likely to be well-liked by Taoists. Unfortunately, Song Yu was a fake Taoist priest. Chayan was a slender woman with fair skin and delicate features. Her delicate beauty was accentuated by her Taoist robe. Song Yu was not interested in forming such connections. The two were disciples of those two Taoist priests from yesterday. Song Yu understood the implications here. It was very evident that those two middle-aged Taoists were strong contenders for the position of successor to the thriving Fuking Palace. They both sought to establish a connection with Song Yu as a gentle way to enhance their competitiveness. Guang Huazi knew what they were thinking and doing, but he neither minded nor stopped them. Song Yu didn't mind this approach either. Thinking from a different perspective, Hidden Dragon Temple and Fuking Temple had maintained good relations for decades, with the Fuking Temple visiting every year. If Song Yu were to like and befriend one of them, and it would be perfectly fine to openly show it. If that person did eventually take over Fuking Temple, he would be more at ease during future visits with a friend. If someone else took over, it wouldn't matter either. Song Yu was simply expressing his preference according to his nature without interfering in the succession of Fuking Temple. They would continue to interact as usual in the future. However, socializing with people felt bothersome to him. Taoist friend Song, tomorrow my senior brother Yingfeng and I will take you up the mountain, Qian said as she sized Song Yu up. My senior brother and I are both very familiar with this mountain. We will surely be able to show you a good time sightseeing. What time would you like to set off? Yingfeng asked warmly and enthusiastically. Judging by the way they interacted, these two seemed to get along well, and their masters. Rivalry had not affected their camaraderie as fellow disciples at the temple. The weather will be bad tomorrow. I'm afraid it will be difficult to climb the mountain. Oh, can you predict the weather, Taoist friend? Just an educated guess based on experience. Then we'll see tomorrow. If the weather is good, we will come to get you early. I'm much obliged to both of you. Don't mention it, Taoist friend. Our temples have had good relations for generations, and this friendship should continue. You're right. Song Yu saw them off. The next day, the weather was bad as expected. There was cold rain in the morning and wind in the evening, with heavy fog in between. Song Yu ended up having 3 good meals there. It just happened to be start of winter, which was perfect for cultivating in the mountains. Chapter 30, like an immortal on Earth. Winter is the end of the year, when all living things are stored away. This is the beginning of winter. From this time, the vitality of heaven and earth here starts to retreat within, and all living things enter a state of rest. Based on Song Yu's 4 seasons rotation method, the spiritual energy cultivated during this season had the functions of conserving vitality, halting processes, and hibernation. However, this was just the inherent characteristic of this spiritual energy and was not particularly powerful. If this spiritual energy was used to cast similar spells, it would have an amplifying effect. If used to cast ordinary spells, it will function like normal spiritual energy. However, if used to cast contrary spells, the effect will be poor. This differs from the method of drawing upon the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. When he got out of bed, it was early morning. Within his body, a wisp of spiritual energy as pure white as snow had been added. This wisp of spiritual energy was very extraordinary. It seems that cultivation indeed requires drawing upon the spirit of different mountains and rivers. A thick layer of frost covered the floor indoors, which was also quite wondrous. Lady Calico had disappeared somewhere again. Song Yu was about to go out to look for her, when he suddenly heard people chatting outside. Master, what immortal abode is that hidden dragon temple? And who is that Taoist priest Master Song? I've never heard of him before, yet he didn't even address the temple owner as Taoist elder. Hidden Dragon Temple is a secluded temple, so it's normal that you haven't heard of it. However, our Fuking Temple is fortunate to have a connection with it and knows it very well. Why is it called Fulong, Hidden Dragon Temple? Was there once an immortal who subdued a dragon there? The name Fulong does not refer to subduing a dragon but to lying low and living in seclusion. It is not that an immortal once subdued a dragon there, but rather it is a metaphor that the people in the temple are like a hidden dragon. When a hidden dragon lives in seclusion, it is unknown to the world. However, when it emerges from the mountain, none in the world can match them. The gentle voice was full of patience. Hidden Dragon Temple has been passed down for countless generations, always with only one successor at a time. Not only has the succession never been interrupted, each generation's temple owner lives up to the name. They are all like dragons and phoenixes in the realm and few can match them. Taoist priest Song is the current heir. Only one person. Usually, there are 2, the master and the disciple. That's so few. The current owner of Hidden Dragon Temple Taoist Duoxing is akin to an earthly immortal. No wonder he addresses the temple owner as senior Taoist brother. The young boy's voice sounded very surprised. Song Yu merely smiled and stood at the door without stepping out. In fact, he called Guang Huazi senior Taoist brother rather than Taoist elder. Because on one hand, seniority was not strictly observed between Taoists from different temples, and on the other hand, he was indeed of the same generation as Guanghuazi. Back when the master of his master from the Hidden Dragon Temple and the owner of Fuking Temple formed a connection, they were of the same generation. However, Hidden Dragon Temple's generational transition was much slower than that of regular temples. Fuking Temple experienced a generational transition every 20 to 30 years, while Hidden Dragon Temple took at least 40 to 50 years for each transition. As a result, when Hidden Dragon Temple had been handed on to its second-generation owner, Fuking Temple had already been passed on to its third-generation owner. Guanghuazi was slightly younger than Song Yu's master and admired her greatly in his youth. He had always addressed her as Taoist Elder, a term of respect for much older Taoists from other temples. Thus, Song Yu naturally had to call him either Senior Taoist Brother or Taoist Master. The people outside chatted for a while longer without moving, seemingly waiting for someone. Song Yu, not wanting to embarrass them, stayed inside until they left. Then he opened the door and went out. Just then, Lady Calico returned with small, quick steps. "Good morning, Lady Calico." "Good morning, Taoist priest. Where did you go?" "I went to have breakfast. I saw you sitting motionless and thought you must be cultivating, so I didn't call you." "You," Song Yu shook his head and smiled. He knew very well that the reason Lady Calico had agreed to stay the day before yesterday was because of the sumptuous feast at noon. She had greatly enjoyed eating the generous amounts of meat and fish. Yesterday, every meal also had fish and meat. The Taoist priests of Fuking Temple seemed to understand that if they wanted Song Yu to stay longer, they needed to serve Lady Calico well too, so they kept trying to please her with varied dishes. She was quite the little glutton. Song Yu closed the door and went to have breakfast himself. Before he had finished eating, the two young Taoist priests Chian and Yingfeng came again. They said to him, "Senior Taoist brother, the weather is nice today. Why don't we go to the mountain top to watch the clouds?" "Sounds good. Take your time eating, Senior Taoist brother." All right, Song Yu did indeed take his time. Breakfast was steamed buns with filling made of solid dough and stuffed generously. The taste was very down-to-earth, and they came with thin porridge and pickled cabbage. Ordinary people could not afford such good food. Also, judging by the looks of the other Taoists in the dining hall, they did not eat like this every day at Fuking Temple. After breakfast, they climbed the mountain, and there were already footprints on the stone slabs. Yingfeng and Chian were very nice people. One was gentle and talkative, and the other spoke considerately in a very caring way. They were also good-looking. If they had been born in later times and hadn't become Taoist priests, they would probably have been very popular. Taoists lead leisurely lives and often find pleasure in hiking and climbing mountains. The two knew Qingcheng Mountain very well and introduced the various temples on the mountain as they walked. It was said that there were 56 Taoist temples of various sizes on the mountain and countless cottages built for cultivation. Most people only read Taoist classics. Only 9 temples have true Taoist arts traditions, and there were some secluded masters in the cottages. Actually, most temples in this world were like this. Most have no Taoist arts traditions, and only read Taoist classics, worshipped Taoist deities, and contemplated Taoist philosophy. Only a very few have Taoist arts traditions, and the content might not be what everyone imagines. How to put it? Among the few with traditions, most only pass on some knowledge and experience. For example, the preferences and weaknesses of certain ghosts and monsters, how to burn incense to communicate with gods, and the procedures for rituals, etc. These things do not require spiritual energy and can be effective even for ordinary people with sincere hearts or those exorcists without any Taoist skills at all. These things could be called Taoist arts, methods, or a kind of skill, but to call them magic would be somewhat inaccurate. Other places with magic traditions mostly had some simple magic, such as communicating with spirits, exorcising evil, and seeing gods. These are not profound methods. Many common folks also knew them. Several decades ago, Fuking Temple was like this, not common but unremarkable among the temples on Qingcheng Mountain. Later, they formed a connection with Hidden Dragon Temple. Only then did they become publicly recognized for having true traditions and true masters. Even though those few largest temples on Qingcheng Mountain were more famous, were larger in scale, and had more people than Fuking Palace, they would come out even when it came to debating Taoism. However, Fuking Temple would always prevail when it came to magic battles. From then on, Fuking Temple began to gradually flourish. Its scale and reputation still did not match those few ancient temples which were a few hundred or 1,000 years old, and it was inferior when it came to debating Taoist classics and Taoist principles. However, Its Taoist arts had few rivals on Qingcheng Mountain. Due to this, Yingfeng and Qian were afraid of not entertaining Songyu appropriately. They knew that being scolded when they went back was a minor issue, but being discourteous was a major one. Talking while walking, they didn't feel tired and soon reached the mountain top. The weather was indeed nice that day. However, Qingcheng Mountain was not very high. Without fog at the foot of the mountain and mist amassing after rain, they would not see a sea of clouds. Qian's mention of cloud watching referred to looking at the clouds in the sky. Songyu also loved watching clouds, especially while lying down. With overripe Chinese gooseberries the size of pigeon eggs from the mountain, and steamed buns with pickled vegetable fillings, it was truly delightful. Senior Taoist brother, have you heard this line of poetry saying, in the mountains, there is no time, and a year is a cycle of 60 years? Before. I have. Do such immortal mountains truly exist in the world? I haven't seen them. Taoist elder Duoxing has traveled widely. Has she seen them? I don't think so. If that's the case, then it's just a legend. The girl in the Taoist robe seemed a bit disappointed, as if her notions about immortals in her heart and dreams had diminished somewhat. Songyu neither confirmed nor denied. Time cannot be reversed, and reclaiming youth is difficult. However, if it was slowing down time, even in his previous world there were sufficient theories to support it, not to mention in this world. From what he had learned and seen, it was also profoundly mysterious, and it's hard to say. He just nibbled his steamed bun and enjoyed watching the clouds. The clouds at that moment looked like light feathers spread across the blue sky. Senior Taoist brother indeed seems content. I'm a bit tired. Junior sister and I will go find some fruit. We'll stay here until dusk and watch the sunset before going back. Since you are tired, you can just wait here. All right. The two laughed and went to look for fruit. They hadn't found any fruit when they saw a red glow on a distant mountain. Thick billowing smoke rose, rushing up the sky like a dragon. There's a fire, Taoist priest Yingfeng cried out in alarm. Apparently, yesterday's light rain had only fallen halfway up the mountain. However, the fire was fanned by the wind and spread rapidly in a twinkling of an eye, leaving behind a large black scar. Seeing this, the consequences were unimaginable if it continued like this. However, it was a natural disaster. Their cultivation levels were low. Moreover, Taoist cultivators were not immortals. How could they extinguish the mountain fire with mere mortal powers? The two of them were immediately anxious, but helpless. Just then, a voice came from behind. Taoist friends, don't worry. They turned their heads to see that senior Taoist brother Song had already stood up. He brushed off the grass bits and mud from his body and gazed at the mountain fire like them, but without any panic. The mountain fire wreaked havoc and caused great destruction to living things, so it naturally needed to be extinguished. And he waved his hand and pointed out a white star. The white star crossed the sky and fell into the fire. The fire's energy was contained, and the mountain fire instantly contracted as if affected and disappeared in the twinkling of an eye. Not even a spark or smoke remained. If it weren't for the large area of withered grass and ashes left behind, one might think it had never happened. The two of them looked at each other, momentarily breathless. They immediately understood why Fuking Temple had developed to its current scale, but still treated visitors from Hidden Dragon Temple with utmost respect. They even went to seek advice every year. It turned out it wasn't just about courtesy and gratitude. For the rest of the afternoon, the two of them were reverent and respectful, even more well-behaved than when they were in front of their masters or the temple owner. It wasn't until after dusk that the three of them descended the mountain. However, when they returned to the Taoist temple, their respective masters asked how they had gotten along and if they had made any connections. They didn't know how to respond. They felt that this Taoist friend Song had even more profound cultivation skills than the previous owner of Hidden Dragon Temple, who had first descended the mountain decades ago, and whom they had heard about from their masters. From Songyu's day of interaction with the two, he found them to be good people, at least for now. Unfortunately, Songyu was unwilling to make friends. He couldn't choose whom to be close to or whom to distance himself from. He was destined to be unable to provide a choice for the future successor of Fuking Temple. After dinner in the evening, Songyu took out the letter he had prepared and said to Guanghuazi, "Brother, I have one more request." A season has passed since I left. I've written a letter and would like to ask you to deliver it next spring. I see. Guanghuazi took the letter and carefully put it away. Chapter 31, The Temple Fair. The oil lamp flickered in the room, its wick glowing red. Lady Calico paced around on top of the wooden table, seemingly aimless, before suddenly sitting down at the edge. Her tail naturally wrapped around her little feet, and she said to Songyu, Taoist priest, you felt very cold while cultivating today. Songyu wasn't surprised. The little cat always acted freely, doing whatever she pleased and saying whatever she wanted. He simply answered softly, it's because I was drawing upon the spiritual resonance hidden in winter, which has a stillness in it. What's that? It's a long story. The Calico cat lowered her head to lick her body, not interested in hearing more. She just said, I only need to practice breathing exercises by myself. Not everyone can be like you. Do you cultivate quickly? Some people are fast and some are slow. Even for me, I'm sometimes fast and sometimes slow, Songyu said. Back at the Taoist temple, my cultivation progress was average. However, the world opened up after descending the mountain, and I made rapid progress. Why? It's quite mysterious. However, you are a demon and not human, so you don't need to learn this. You only need to practice your breathing exercises as usual. I see. Songyu smiled. Maybe because he had lived 2 lives, or maybe for other reasons, he increasingly disliked complicated things and preferred simplicity. Although the Taoist priests at Fuking Temple were all very friendly, he still found conversing with Lady Calico more relaxing and interesting, even if the conversation lacked substance. Lady Calico. The Calico cat was licking her fur, but immediately looked up when she heard him. How about we go back the day after tomorrow? You can decide. We're traveling companions. I should discuss such a big decision with you. The day after tomorrow. Yes. The Calico cat stared at Songyu for a while before saying, you don't seem to like them much. Why do you say that? There's meat to eat here every day, but you don't like it here. I just find having fun with them less amusing than being with you. Songyu shook his head. Besides, we can't eat other people's meat every day. That's true. So what do you think? Let's go back tomorrow. The Calico cat immediately responded very decisively. That's not good either. Why? I have to help them solve some Taoist arts problems tomorrow. It's our repayment for their hospitality these few days. Oh, the Calico cat seemed to be pondering. Let's sleep. Songyu blew out the oil lamp, the sparks scattering like stars. The next morning, Chayan and Yingfeng came to look for Songyu again. They did their best to entertain him. However, they weren't fated to be together like their predecessors decades ago after all. While their forced interaction was fine, it was hard to form the camaraderie like their predecessors had decades ago within a short time. Songyu just helped the Taoist priests solve their problems, and then informed Guanghuazi in the evening that he planned to return the next day. Despite their efforts to persuade him to stay, he remained resolute. Chayan and Yingfeng admired him immensely. They more or less already revered him as an immortal on earth in their hearts. They wanted to follow him in wandering the world, but he told them they were not fated to be together. The following day, Songyu descended the mountain early in the morning while it was still dark. The bright moonlight shone on him as he traveled with only the cat for company. Walking from early in the morning to dusk, he was already near Yidu by sunset. Considering that it was already winter and staying outside overnight was cold, Songyu decided to continue walking by moonlight until he reached Yidu. Coincidentally, he arrived just before the city gates closed for the night. Upon entering his courtyard, the sound of singing arose and brought a sense of peace to his heart. / ********. The weather in Yidu grew increasingly colder. Songyu led a leisurely life. Besides going often to the market to listen to stories, he mostly stayed home, warming himself by the fire, cultivating, and chatting with the cat. He lived a cozy life with warm fires and a felt blanket, not venturing out with his cat. Occasionally, people came seeking talismans or consecrated amulets based on his reputation. Though he had no consecrated items, drawing a talisman was easy for him, and he always obliged. He could more or less earn some money to buy meat for Lady Calico to eat. Sometimes he went out to observe the winter scenery in Yidu, watching people braving the cold for their livelihoods while hurrying around in unlined clothing. He saw how the cold weather stripped away the facade of prosperity, yielding some insightful observations. A yellow plum tree in the courtyard gradually sprouted flower buds. Songyu often sat under the tree, looking at it and wondering when it would bloom. When he leaned in close and sniffed lightly, he could already smell a delicate fragrance. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the courtyard door. When Songyu opened it, he found Constable Luo standing outside. Despite the wintry 12th lunar month, Constable Luo still wore his black uniform and boots, only dressed in somewhat thicker clothing underneath. His cheeks were red from the wind, and he held a small fish strung through its cheeks on a river vine. Greetings, mister. Aren't you cold, Chief? A martial artist who is always moving doesn't feel the cold. Please come in quickly. Constable Luo followed Songyu into the courtyard, closing the door behind him with familiarity. He said as they walked, "My wife's younger brother is idle and recently obsessed with fishing. Today he fished for half a day and came back shivering, having only caught this small fish. It's less than 2 fingers wide, yet he claimed it would make good soup for us. Haha, so I brought it here for Lady Calico instead." "You're very considerate." Lady Calico, as Constable Luo spoke, he unstrung the fish. Instead of throwing it on the ground, he placed it on the clean stone table. Initially, he hadn't brought gifts for Lady Calico during his visits, only bringing some items for Songyu. However, by chance when he came seeking advice about nightmare ghosts one day, he suddenly saw a pretty, fair-skinned little girl in the courtyard. He had never seen the little girl there before. Over subsequent visits, sometimes he saw the cat, sometimes the little girl, but never both at the same time. With time, he gradually realized what was happening, connecting the dots with Lady Calico's usual demeanor and actions. Having been a constable in Yidu for many years, he'd encountered various supernatural occurrences, including dealing with cases of animals becoming demons. Frankly, they weren't that mysterious. These creatures just gained some intelligence when they became demons. They were already terrifying if they could speak like a human and didn't have the ability to transform into humans as stories suggested. A martial artist could still kill them easily with his saber. At most, they could plead for mercy in various ways when facing death. It was the first time he had seen a demon that could transform. Constable Luo felt both momentary surprise and inevitability. He felt surprised because there was a demon who could transform living right across from him, and he hadn't noticed for so long. However, on second thought, it seemed very normal for her to be with a master like Songyu. After all, what master in stories didn't have a child servant who wasn't a mortal or a mount that was actually a demon? Naturally, Songyu should have one too. From that point on, he brought some gifts for Lady Calico every time he visited. In return, she ensured his home was free of mice and that his food was safe. Seeing the Calico cat had already started eating, Constable Luo watched for a while before turning to Songyu. "Mister, the Yuyuang Temple Fair is in a few days." "In a few days?" "In 3 more days, on the 3rd day of the month." Ah, Songyu only realized then that it was already the 12th lunar month. The area around Yuyuang Temple is already bustling with people, but it will only be liveliest after the 3rd, Constable Luo said. "Do you want to buy anything? This temple fair has crooks mixed in with the honest folk. Do you need me to guide you? I have a team of subordinates who can help you." "We'll see when the time comes. If you need anything, just knock on my door." "Thank you in advance, Chief." "You're welcome, mister." After chatting for a while, Songyu saw Constable Luo off. Songyu's face now bore a smile. Temple Fair, also known as the Temple Market, originated from religious gatherings. Especially during major festivals or religious holidays, large numbers of worshippers would gather. Where there were people, there was business. In this era where transportation is inaccessible and shopping is inconvenient, people still need to purchase goods. Thus, people started setting up stalls at temple fairs. As more merchants gathered, more customers came, creating a positive cycle. Eventually, temple fairs evolved beyond just serving worshippers and became major shopping festivals, one of the liveliest spectacles of the year. Temple fairs actually varied in size. Smaller ones just attracted people from nearby villages or the same county, while larger ones were significant events. The largest could even draw people from several prefectures. It's hard for modern people to imagine, but some would travel 1,000 li over half a month just to offer a stick of incense, enjoy the fair for a few days, and then spend another half a month returning home. During this period, people could broaden their horizons, make substantial profits, form lifelong friendships, meet potential partners by chance, or come and return alone after being robbed. The Yuyuang Temple Fair was the most influential fair in Yizhu. Although it didn't draw people from multiple prefectures, it attracted visitors from remote areas within the prefecture and even some street performers and traveling merchants from outside the prefecture. The fair was held on the 3rd day of the 12th lunar month because it was reputedly the birthday of the Yuyuang deity. Such large-scale fairs had long outgrown the Yuyuang temple's confines. It just started on this day and usually extended a few more days before this lively spectacle ended. Songyu had long anticipated this fair. After wandering around, he confirmed Constable Luo's words. Many traveling merchants and street performers had already arrived in Yidu that day. They gathered in the streets and alleys near Yuyuang Temple, creating a lively, chaotic scene. Lady Calico noticed his excitement, but she was somewhat puzzled. "Taoist priest, is the temple fair very fun?" "I don't know," Songyu replied, adding, "I hope it's interesting." "You seem to like temple fairs a lot." "They're very lively," Songyu told the Calico cat. Have you seen lively scenes before? The city is very lively. No, Song Yu shook his head. No matter how populous Great Yan was or how prosperous Yidu was, they were constrained by the times. The city population was likely smaller than the crowd at a modern New Year's Eve gathering at a provincial landmark, or even the daily number of guests at a popular tourist spot during Golden Week. Only the temple fair was truly lively. It was the grandest human spectacle in this age, comparable to the liveliness of the modern era. Song Yu's eyes sparkled, but he didn't explain further to Lady Calico. He only said, "There are many things at the fair we can't usually see, like street performers who know tricks, exotic flowers and rare herbs, as well as rare birds and animals. We can not only enjoy a few days of excitement, but also buy a lot of tasty food. And buy a horse or mule." A horse? Yes. We buy a horse. What's the matter? We're buying a horse. Or maybe a mule, Song Yu said to her. It'll make traveling the world in the future easier. Great. Lady Calico's eyes sparkled. Song Yu stared at her, puzzled. This cat seemed unusually excited. Chapter 32, The Jianghu Performer. Third day of the 12th lunar month. Calico Cat was already standing at the head of Song Yu's bed very early in the morning. She first sat still for a long time, staring at his face. Seeing that he showed no signs of waking, the cat was torn between calling him and not wanting to disturb him. Yet she had to call him. Eventually, she chose the middle ground and began to softly, very softly, call out, "Taoist priest, Taoist priest." She was afraid he would hear her, yet also afraid he wouldn't. The epitome of indecision. There was no choice. That day they had to go to the temple fair to buy a horse. Also, the Taoist priest had said, "we" instead of "I." Who would have thought that a tiny cat could actually buy a big horse one day? Taoist priest, Taoist priest, Taoist priest. Finally, Song Yu was awakened by her calls. When he opened his eyes, the cat's head was right in front of his eyes. "What are you doing, Lady Calico?" "Oh," the Calico Cat instantly pulled back. She hesitated for a moment before blinking a few times and saying, "Just checking on you." "I was just sleeping." "Hurry and get up. Let's visit the temple fair." "No rush, no rush. If we don't go early, all the horses will be bought up." "Then forget it." The Calico Cat turned her head and stared at him sternly. After a few seconds, she urged repeatedly, "Get up quickly. Hurry, hurry." With that, she bit the corner of the blanket and tugged it to the side. Song Yu had no choice but to get up. Getting dressed and washed took only a quarter of an hour, and the Calico Cat stayed by his side the whole time, keeping close and watching intently, as if supervising and urging him. "Lady Calico, are you going out as a cat or in human form?" "What do you think?" "There are many people at the temple fair. Cats are too small and might easily get stepped on." Song Yu paused. "If you transform into human form, you can accompany me. If you go out as a cat, I'll have to carry you." "I'll transform into human form." "Please go to your room." "Okay." The Calico Cat dashed back to her room. "Taoist priest." Song Yu sighed. She had probably forgotten where she put her clothes again. "Help me find my clothes." He wasn't wrong at all. After some fuss, they finally set off. Yuyuang Temple was in the east of the city, quite a walk away. They could take this opportunity to find a shop where they could eat breakfast that they hadn't yet tried. After Lady Calico's glaring and urging, they headed toward the east of the city. Song Yu carried half a string of cash and 2 pieces of officially minted silver. His bosom felt heavy and bulged throughout the whole journey. The closer they got to Yuyuang Temple, the more crowded it became. Most of the passers-by were heading in the same direction. In these times, religious festivals were of utmost importance, with few things more significant. With the day being both the birthday of the Yuyuang deity, who was widely revered locally, as well as the day the Grand Temple Fair started, everyone from high-ranking frontier officials to commoners or cloistered young ladies from good families all ventured out and headed to Yuyuang Temple. Many jianghu people from faraway places had also come to attend the fair. Song Yu happened to run into Prefect Yu, but did not go up to greet him. Instead, he paused like other commoners to watch Prefect Yu and his retinue pass by. He faintly heard people around him discussing. "Is that the prefect? Who else could it be? Why does the prefect's procession have so few people this year? Last year, it stretched half a li." "Who knows?" Song Yu smiled as he listened. He let the prefect's procession pass, and a few more steps brought the Yuyuang Temple into view. The area outside the temple was crowded with people, and the roof shrouded in clouds of smoke. The sound of musical instruments also drifted over from that direction. The street soon became extremely congested. With vendors and street performers filling every alley around the temple, the human tide made movement almost impossible. Before they even arrived, they could already hear the shouts of vendors hawking their wares. Traveling through the jianghu, selling for money or not. I'm setting up the stall first. Everyone passing by, please take a look. Just watching is free. Passing through this treasure land with empty pockets and a rumbling stomach, I'm selling some herbal remedies first. Herbal remedies, herbs growing tall. 10 people go to gather, 9 lose their lives. Songyu couldn't help but stop to listen with a smile to the humorous and catchy sales, jingles like the other commoners. This was what made it lively. Stay close, Lady Calico. Where do we buy the horse? I don't know, let's look for it first. Okay. A large figure and a small figure headed towards the densest part of the crowd. The sights were indeed eye-opening. They were acrobats, tossing plates and bowls, climbing poles, walking tightropes, jumping through fire hoops, throat-stabbing with iron spears, neck-choking with iron chains. These were mostly skills honed through hard practice. There was a monkey trainer. The trainer and the monkey cooperated seamlessly, one commanding the monkey to perform tasks and the other playing the fool for laughs. The trainer would threaten with a knife, and the monkey would immediately cower. However, the moment the trainer was inattentive, the monkey would grab the knife and counterattack. Any observant person could tell that it was a prearranged act, but the performance was so natural that it made everyone laugh heartily. There was the magic rope trick. A rope was thrown up into the sky, and the end was immediately shrouded in clouds of smoke. The rope also became straight, and a person could actually climb up along it. As the climber gradually disappeared into the clouds, the rope fell back down in front of the audience's eyes. The clouds of smoke dissipated, and the person was gone, leaving the audience shouting in alarm. There were fire breathers. Initially, they drank oil to breathe fire just to add to the fair's excitement. However, the crowd soon noticed that though the oil had been used up, the performer could blow fire by just approaching a torch. Eventually, they didn't even need a torch, just spouting flames from their empty mouths. Everyone realized this was true skill. Thus copper coins clinked all over on the ground. They were conjurers. An empty basin could instantly produce birds, fish, and snakes. With another wave of the hand, they would vanish for no reason. Similar to latter-day magic, these conjurers needed a cloth to obscure their tricks. They either used clever sleight-of-hand tricks or swift and nimble movements. Songyu paused for a moment at every spot. Lady Calico was initially focused on buying a horse, but gradually she was captivated by these performances. She obediently stayed close to Songyu, her eyes wide with wonder. Whenever someone brought over a tray for tips, Songyu never refused, always giving at least a few wen. In general, only jianghu people were this generous. It wasn't that they were wealthy. It was because they understood the hardships of traveling through the jianghu and were particular about such things. Either they avoided watching, or if they watched, they would give a little no matter how strapped for cash they were. However, just as they had finished watching and were about to leave, Songyu felt something amiss. Reaching into his bosom, he found the half-string of coins still there, but the 2 pieces of officially minted silver were gone. This was interesting. Songyu turned back, looking at the middle-aged performer who was still demonstrating conjuring tricks. Scanning the surroundings, he heard cheers again and again. Even patrons in nearby inns were tossing down money. He said nothing and waited there for a while. Having strolled around for so long, it was already long past noon. One by one, the jianghu street performers stopped, saying they needed to prepare their meals. The crowd also gradually dispersed. Only then did Songyu approach the performer. This man looked around 30 or 40. He was broad-shouldered and solidly built with a fierce-looking face. At the moment, he was eating heartily with a few subordinates. He ate well. There were large chunks of boiled meat. Your meal is quite sumptuous, Songyu said, smiling as he stood before him. The performer looked up at the shadow and saw that it was a young man leading a little girl. He was taken aback and asked in a foolish way, "What do you want? We'll only start after finishing our meal." "It's no big deal," Songyu said politely, his voice calm. "I just happened to drop some silver while watching your performance here just now. I wondered if you saw them." The performer was puzzled. "If you lost silver, you should report it to the authorities. The temple fair is crowded and chaotic, so thieves are inevitable. You don't really think I can make things disappear into thin air since we know some magic tricks, do you? Are you framing us?" As he spoke, he grew angry. With his already robust physique and swarthy complexion, once he raised his eyebrows and glared, any trace of foolishness vanished, leaving only a terrifying ferocity. But Songyu remained mild and calm. "I just saw that while your mastery of the art of telekinesis had not reached the acme of perfection, you have already reached great heights. It's far beyond my abilities, so I came over to ask. The performer's expression immediately hardened. Actually, he hadn't used the art of telekinesis during his performance, but just tricks of the hand. Yet he didn't argue or deny it. He simply studied Song-yu for a moment before cupping his hands. May I ask where you come from? I am Song-yu from Hidden Dragon Temple on Yinyang Mountain. I see, so you're a Taoist priest. Apologies. No need to apologize. How much did you lose? 20 taels of officially minted silver. The performer immediately turned and waved at the person beside him. He neither magnanimously admitted the theft nor denied it again. He did not even offer some polite excuse like, "Since it's fate that we've met, we'll compensate you for the loss as a token of friendship." Instead, he just ordered his subordinate to fetch the money. 2 pieces of girdled beehive silver. They were not the lost ones, but matched the amount. Song-yu weighed the silver pieces in his hand twice, and then put them away. One could only say it was hard to determine whether jianghu people were good or bad, but they all adhere to principles to some extent. Thank you. My apologies for the offense. However, I have another question, Song-yu asked. With your skills, why do you engage in this line of work? You jest. The middle-aged man laughed, surprisingly with a touch of carefree ease. This art of telekinesis originally evolved from jianghu magic tricks. Besides, this is the only skill we have. In these times, what other job can make more money? Or do you think pretending to be a great master to con the nobility is more honorable and easier? Song-yu couldn't help thinking for a moment. Fair point. We also have our own rules. The middle-aged man picked up his rice bowl and started eating again as he spoke. We only take officially minted silver, not wen or pieces of silver. If a master sees through us or someone suspects us, as long as they can find us and report what happened, we will always return the money. I see. Song-yu couldn't help pondering this. In Great Yan, officially minted silver started from 10 taels. Taking only officially minted silver and not wen or pieces of silver was convenient for carrying on one hand and also avoided robbing poor people based on the denomination on the other hand. It was a kind of mentality of robbing the rich, but not the poor. The latter rule also somewhat prevented people from reporting to the authorities. Jianghu people respected mutual principles. In these times, ordinary people generally did not trust the authorities, much unlike latter-day people. Jianghu people had their own ways of solving problems they encountered and would be ridiculed by their peers if they reported to the authorities. As for normal wealthy people, it would be hard for them to realize that they were robbed by someone 2 jiang away. Even if they discovered it, they would not report it to the authorities as long as their money was returned, fearing retaliation from Jianghu people. Actually, the risks have been greatly reduced, and being mobile made it even less risky. Standing before the performer, Song-yu still asked, "Aren't you afraid of being interrogated by the authorities?" Upon hearing this, the middle-aged man squinted and paused his eating. He looked up at Song-yu. "Are you joking with me?" "I'm curious," Song-yu said, his expression unchanged. "You perform this kind of magic trick. If something like this happens and you encounter an experienced constable, won't you be the #1 suspect? You are trapped by your own knowledge. To most people, this is just a sleight-of-hand trick. Even if they know there's something fishy, how many would think of someone taking things from a distance? Even if someone did figure it out, we would be long gone." "I see. Thank you for the explanation." Song-yu seemed thoughtful and nodded as he spoke. "Is there anything else? Then I'll take my leave." "Taoist priest?" As Song-yu was about to leave, the man stopped him again. He was still worried and scrutinized Song-yu as he said, "Don't you dare report this to the authorities." Meeting his gaze, Song-yu thought for a moment and then nodded. "All right." The man had vividly informed him not to be confined by what he knew. The man had principles, and although Song-yu was not a jianghu person, he was willing to adhere to those principles this time. He decided not to report to the authorities this time. However, adhering to principles did not mean confusing right and wrong. Constable Luo was experienced and competent. He would likely suspect something and come to consult Song-yu in time. When that happened, he would have to tell him. It was just uncertain whether he would run faster or Constable Luo would chase faster. Chapter 33, Boldly Questioning the Deity. "Taoist priest, what were you saying to that person just now?" "He stole my money." The little girl immediately stopped in her tracks, not walking any further. Judging by her expression, she seemed to be thinking of going to snatch the money back. "I already got the money back from him." "Bite him to death." "Humans can't do that." "Beat him to death." "It's not about biting or beating to death." Song-yu patted her head. Given her height, he could reach her head easily, which was quite convenient. "The punishment should fit the crime. You can't just beat someone to death because they stole some money from you. That's not in line with human standards. Oh, the girl nodded, looking thoughtful. Just as Songyu thought she had understood something or perhaps gained some insight, she extended her hand towards him and asked, "Do you want to eat a pill of immortality?" What? A pill of immortality? Songyu was puzzled. He looked down. A tiny little hand that was extremely beautiful held a small pill in the center of its soft, fair-skinned palm, which was very, very small. The little girl looked up at him with her fair and clear face, her expression serious. What is this? A pill of immortality. The girl seemed deeply convinced about this. Where did it come from? I found it. Where did you find it? In my nose. Songyu was momentarily speechless. The little girl continued to press. Are you eating it or not? I'm not eating it. Why not? Don't look for this kind of pill of immortality in the future. If you don't eat it, I will. Smack. Hey, why did you knock away my pill of immortality? Don't eat that again. A large figure and a small figure walked further and further away. After searching around, they finally found the mule and horse market. As the name suggests, this place mainly traded mules, horses, and donkeys. As soon as they entered, there was a strong smell of dung. Many people were haggling, some stretching their hands into sleeves to indicate prices, while others conversed normally. Quite a few jianghu people were here too, looking to choose a mount they fancied. Looking at a horse to judge its worth requires skill. A good horse complemented a hero. If someone picked a good horse, it was as if a tiger had grown wings. If the horse is chosen by a hero, it also gains some glory by association. However, a fine steed is hard to come by, and heroes are rare. However, if a fine steed happens to meet a hero, they can achieve great things together. In the future, when someone writes a biography or historical novel, both their names may be recorded in history. Songyu was not skilled at judging horses, but he had his own choosing method. He didn't plan to buy one right away today, though. In these times, buying a horse was like buying a car. Mules weren't cheap either. Even wealthy families must be cautious about making such purchases. Lady Calico, remember to follow me closely. There are too many jianghu people here. Don't get kidnapped. Oh, Lady Calico's eyes were drawn to the large horses and mules by the sides of the road. It was unclear if she had heard him, and Songyu thought she probably hadn't heard. She even swayed as she walked. Songyu had to hold her hand. They looked as they walked along. Yidu was an important node in the tea-horse trade. Most of the horses here came from the southwest and were small in stature. It wasn't an exaggeration to say they were barely bigger than some large donkeys. However, there were no inherently bad horses. Each had its uses. Even the southwest horses, which were often considered inferior, were unmatched in traversing mountain paths. But horses were precious and required good feed and grooming. The maintenance cost was high, and good horses were expensive. Their merits were just that they excelled at running and looked handsome. However, there wasn't much opportunity for galloping on long journeys. Their explosive speed advantage seemed unlikely to come in useful, making them less cost-effective. Unless you could buy a Bayuan horse. Bayuan horses lived in the harsh northern highlands, making them extremely tough and resistant to both the cold and the heat. They were able to thrive on coarse feed and had strong stamina. Although not tall and lacking explosive speed, they were the most commonly used military horse breed by the Great Yan court and were rarely seen in the market. Donkeys were the opposite, on the other hand. They could tolerate coarse feed, had strong stamina, and were quite valuable for labor. These days, it has become popular for the literati to ride donkeys as a sign of their refinement. A few years ago, even the current prime minister once rode a donkey to court to highlight his literati loftiness. It was also popular for Taoists to ride donkeys as it gave them an ethereal aura of an immortal. Mules fell in between, combining the strengths of both. However, mules were divided into two types, hinnies and horse mules. Pairing the two, hinnies were more similar to donkeys in build, strength, and temperament. They were tough and tolerated coarse feed, but they were somewhat shorter and smaller. Horse mules were more similar to horses in build and were taller and bigger, even rivaling horses in strength. Good horse mules were no cheaper than horses. Both had higher utility value than donkeys and were more resilient and tougher than horses. So mules seemed to be a better choice. However, the emperor seemed to have plans recently to deploy troops in the north again. Horses and mules were important military goods, and the authorities had reportedly bought a large number of horses and horse mules before the temple fair opened. This not only caused the prices of horses and mules in the market to soar, with a southwest horse easily costing over 20 guan, but also meant that good ones had almost all been chosen and bought up. Only some subpar ones were left, which jianghu people still furiously fought over. Songyu looked around, but really couldn't find one he fancied. Aren't we buying one yet? There aren't any I fancy. I told you to get up earlier. I was wrong. Everyone else is buying. Lady Calico pointed at a person leading a horse mule away. That person has already bought one. No rush. Xianxia planned to look for 2 more days. If he still couldn't find a suitable one, he would buy a little donkey. He would travel the world leading it. Just thinking about it made him quite elated. Some lines of poetry about riding donkeys had already come to his mind. It was almost dusk. After wandering around the temple fair all day, how could they not go to Yuyuang Temple to burn some incense? It just so happened that the crowd had already thinned by that time. Thus Xianxia led Lady Calico to the temple. There was still a pair of couplets at the entrance. It read, "You seek fame and profit. He wants to know his fortune. Pity me that I am totally heartless. How could I offer any advice? The hall holds clouds of smoke and is lined with bells and cauldrons. It is laughable that people worship this clay and wood, wasting much money for nothing." According to Constable Luo, the previous couplets didn't used to be these. One day, the Yuyuang deity had appeared in a dream, and only then were they changed to the present ones. From this perspective, perhaps the deity really was from Yizhu. At the very least, this unconstrained spirit of not caring about anything was something commonly seen in people from Yizhu. A large figure and a small figure stepped into the temple. Inside was a deity with a tough and stocky build wearing a multicolored divine robe. He looked righteous and sat majestically on the altar, glaring at every person who walked in. As soon as Lady Calico stepped in, the deity's eyes flashed. She was so startled that her whole body trembled. She quickly stopped and looked at Xianxia, her little face looking somewhat helpless. Fortunately, the flash had disappeared in the twinkling of an eye, and not many had seen it. The deity is indeed here. Xianxia patted Lady Calico's head, stepped forward to pay respects, and then offered incense. Offering incense whenever he came across a temple was his habit since there was nothing else to do anyway. It wasn't that he had much reverence for the deities in the temples. His master often said that he was irreverent towards deities based on his exceptional innate talent and Taoist skills. Maybe so, but she also often said true ancient Taoist cultivators should view deities differently. Thus Xianxia wasn't disrespectful. He just respected them in a different way from ordinary people. The incense smoke rose in spirals, and the candle flames flickered. After offering incense, Xianxia turned and was about to leave when he paused suddenly and looked at the deity statue in front of him. After a moment of thought, he said, "Since the deity is here, have you seen any thieves stealing outside?" The deity's eyes flashed again. "I apologize for my audacity." Xianxia strode out of the door, feeling endless joy in his heart. This was the happiest thing he had done recently. With each step away from the temple, the sky grew darker. The temple fair was no less lively at night than during the day. There were many gifted scholars and beautiful ladies out to have fun carrying lanterns and wandering down the lantern riddles corridor. Beautiful ladies stole glances at scholars, and scholars at beautiful ladies. If fate favored them, it would be a beautiful love story like that of Yi and Jushi. Xianxia only lingered around the night market snacks. A few skewers of grilled meat, a bowl of water basin mutton, and a fire persimmon with a molten center. They were northern delicacies that were normally hard to find and tasted as good as anything from later eras. That was that night's dinner. Xianxia enjoyed this feeling. He liked feeling that it was not inferior compared with later eras. Herbal remedies, effective indeed. Thin people can gain weight after eating it. When urinating, pee can shoot 8 jianghu. How do you take it, you ask? Soak in wine if you have it, soak in urine if you don't, chew it dry if you lack both, it's still effective. Fascinated crowd gathered around him. Xianxia smiled again. This person actually hadn't stopped work for the day. Chapter 34, The Lean Jujubred Horse. Taoist priest, you seem very happy today. Yes, I am. You didn't manage to buy a horse. What are you happy about? Lady Calico tilted her head and looked up at Xianxia doubtfully. Her little face was really very cute. Even though I didn't manage to buy a horse, I enjoyed the hustle and bustle. You like the hustle and bustle? Sometimes I do. When are we going to buy a horse? No rush, no rush. As they approached the courtyard house in Tianshui Alley, they found 2 people already waiting at the entrance. The 2 were dressed in thick Taoist robes and leading a horse. They were Yingfeng and Qian, 2 Taoist priests from Fuking Temple. Xianxia was very surprised to see them and quickly stepped forward to welcome them. Taoist priests, what brings you here? Greetings, senior Taoist brother. The 2 breathed in the chilly air and bowed towards him. They noticed the little girl next to him and couldn't help but ask, "Who is this?" Lady Calico. Lady Calico. Greetings, Lady Calico. The two hurriedly bowed to Lady Calico, their eyes filled with astonishment. They had only heard stories of demons transforming into humans from their elders in the temple, but with their limited Taoist cultivation skills, this was their first time seeing one. Lady Calico returned their bow, imitating them. Yingfeng then said, "The temple owner knew that you intended to travel the world but lacked a mount. The Yuyuang Temple Fair opens today, and he guessed you would go to look for a horse or mule. However, with the northern frontier lacking horses recently, he suspected you would most likely not find a suitable mount. By chance, we were also coming to the fair to buy some things and socialize with the Taoist priests in Yidu. Coincidentally, there was a worshipper in our temple with some connections, so the owner asked us to bring a nag here as a gift for you. Even if you don't ride it, it can at least help carry your luggage on the long journey." Chayan added, "We were worried that you might have already bought a horse or mule by the time we found you. If that happened, we'd have to lead it back. Luckily, it seems you haven't." Songyu looked at the two of them. The Taoist robes provided limited protection against the cold, and in the cold winter night, their lips were already blue from the cold. The night fog made their eyebrows and the ends of their hair moist, adding to the damp chill. As for this horse, it was far from being a nag. Although it was not very tall and nothing special to look at, one could see that it had a large head with a short neck and a sturdy build. Its chest was broad, its mane long, and it had a thick skin with a coarse coat. It was clearly a Baiyuan horse. At most, it could be considered physically unattractive for a Baiyuan horse, but it was still a Baiyuan horse, which was most suited for long journeys. Songyu stood still, his gaze flickering. The two were anxious. After a few seconds, Songyu reached out, smiling, and took the reins of the horse. "Thank you very much, then." The two quickly heaved a sigh of relief. "There's no need to be so polite, senior Taoist brother. It's cold late at night. Come in quickly and warm up by the fire." "We won't trouble you," Yingfeng said hurriedly. "We've been out for a long while and it's best to return as quickly as possible. Our temple has friendly relations with Xianxia Temple in the west of the city, and our elders are all lodging there," Chayan added. "There are many robbers at night, and our elders will worry if we don't go back now. We'll come visit you again tomorrow. Junior sister is right. We have to come back for the fair tomorrow anyway. Be careful, this horse is young and might have a temper. Senior Taoist brother has ways to handle it." "That's true. Horse, you must behave from now on. You must have accumulated good fortune over several lifetimes to be able to travel the mortal world with senior Taoist brother. We want to, but can't even get the chance. Senior Taoist brother, we'll take our leave now." The two continued to chatter seamlessly, in quite an amusing way. Songyu had no choice but to watch them walk away. Then turned back to look at the horse, and it was a very young horse as expected. He couldn't help sighing that it may be hard to determine Guanghuazi's Taoist cultivation level, but he certainly had a remarkable knack for navigating human relationships and scheming. This old Taoist was fated not to be able to become an immortal in this lifetime, but he had already become a worldly wise person. "Puff," the juju-bred horse snorted. "Shhh," Songyu calmly said to it. "Please keep quiet in the city. When I'm free, I'll take you out for a gallop." The juju-bred horse quieted down as expected. There was no sign of an unstable temper. Satisfied, Songyu smiled. Lady Calico had been staring up at the horse with wide eyes that sparkled like stars. When the two Taoist priests left, she quickly asked, "Is this horse good?" "Of course it's good." Upon hearing this, Lady Calico was overjoyed. Songyu had pondered all day and roughly guessed what she was thinking. As for understanding her fully, it wasn't necessary. After all, complete understanding is rare even between humans, let alone between man and cat. The horse was a common juju-bred color. Baiyuan horses were not tall to begin with, and it could be considered short even for its breed. However, he would just need it to carry traveling bags most of the time. They would be traveling slowly and did not need to hurry along like soldiers on the march, so it didn't need to be very robust. Songyu closed the courtyard door and led the horse to the bamboo grove, saying, "This little courtyard is simple and crude. There is no stable. I'm sorry, but you'll have to stay here temporarily. Keep quiet. I'll buy some fodder first thing in the morning." The horse stood still, staying silent as expected. "From now on, we'll be traveling through mountains and rivers together. I'll trouble you to accompany me and help carry my traveling bags. In return, I certainly won't treat you badly." Songyu actually cupped his hands and bowed to the horse as he said this. Interestingly, though the horse continued to stand still, it blinked its pitch-dark eyes and actually seemed to have understood. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Lady Calico reluctantly tore her eyes away from the horse and ran to open the door. Standing outside was Constable Luo, dressed in black clothes and boots. He wore a saber at his waist. With the temple fair these few days, many jianghu people had arrived in the city. Since there were crooks mixed in with the honest folk in the crowd, the constables had switched from their usual iron rulers to steel sabers. Seeing that it was the little girl again that day, Constable Luo's expression changed slightly, but not only did he not show it, he adhered to the tacit agreement of not calling her Lady Calico. He just cupped his hands and asked, "Is the master back?" "He's back." Just as Lady Calico said this, she turned to see Songyu approaching from behind. "Chief, you haven't gone off work. Another mysterious case has come up. I came to consult you." For since Songyu had thought things through before start of winter, he no longer deliberately avoided human entanglements. Nowadays, when Constable Luo encountered mysterious cases, he no longer went everywhere to search for masters in temples or among the commoners, but directly went opposite to consult Songyu. Songyu could provide answers most of the time, and Constable Luo brought small tokens of gratitude which Songyu usually accepted. They had developed a good rapport with each other. Songyu invited him to state his case. Today, the Yamen received reports from several nobles claiming that their silver was mysteriously stolen. Most of these thefts occurred while they were watching performances of conjuring tricks, Constable Luo described in detail. While the temple fair is chaotic to begin with and small-time criminals hiding in the crowd are common, what's strange is that only officially minted silver was stolen, not pieces of silver or copper coins. Some victims had their money securely bundled up. Some officials had gone out in sedan chairs and had placed all their money into boxes within the sedan chairs. Yet they still lost silver, but only the officially minted silver. Do you have any suspects? Among these street performers, there are those with sticky fingers and some with strange abilities. I suspect that those street performers are committing thefts on the run. Constable Luo stealthily observed Songyu. Among them, there is a group performing the 3 immortals returning to the cave trick, who can make objects disappear and reappear. Not only is their act related, most of the thefts reported by nobles happened while watching their shows. I wanted to ask if there's a way to steal silver from a distance. There's a kind of magic known as the art of telekinesis, which has difficult requirements for learning. Not many among the people know it, but practitioners who have mastered it can fetch objects from a distance without being detected by their owners and also make them disappear into thin air. Constable Luo continued to observe Songyu's expression. It seemed like Songyu was merely answering his question. However, having interacted with him for several months, Constable Luo could tell from his tone and expression that Songyu was actually affirming his conjecture. Even so, such tricks are hard to prove. The law is strict, and if we can't find evidence, it would be troublesome if we arrested people randomly. With this kind of magic, if the practitioner had the ability to fetch an object from 1,000 li away, 100 li, 10 li, or even a li away, he wouldn't need to perform conjuring tricks. Songyu said. Since the stolen silver was taken from close by, it can't be placed far away. Constable Luo's expression hardened, and he immediately understood. Then, with a sharp sound, he quickly cupped one fist in the other hand towards Songyu in a salute. "Thank you, mister. I'll take my leave now." As soon as he said this, he walked out energetically. As he reached the door, he suddenly paused and turned to look in the direction of the bamboo grove. He quickly added, "Did you buy a horse at the temple fair? If it's inconvenient to keep it here, the yamen has a special stable. If you need it, I can help you bring it over to be kept at the yamen. The expenses will be funded by the court." Songyu couldn't help smiling and hurriedly thanked him. The footsteps outside quickly faded away. He remembered that the conjurer hadn't packed up yet when they returned from Yuyuang Temple. It was just uncertain if Constable Luo could still find the performer if he went now. Chapter 35. There's cultivation here as well. The next morning, when Songyu woke up and got out of bed, he heard voices outside. Pushing open the door, he saw Constable Luo standing in the bamboo grove. It seemed that Lady Calico had opened the door for him. He was petting the horse's mane while talking to the little girl beside him. Most of the conversation consisted of the little girl asking questions and him answering them. "Do you have horses at home?" "I don't have horses at home, but the yamen does. We can go get them when we need them." "Are there many?" "Just the county yamen? Not many. However, the post stations have many, and in emergencies, we can temporarily use them depending on the situation." "Are they as good as our horse?" Well, Constable Luo was momentarily tongue-tied. It seemed that Lady Calico was actually quite familiar with him, reminding Songyu of some pet cats from his previous world. When in a good mood, they would immediately play with guests. When in a bad mood, they would lie there and not move at all. Lady Calico was in a very good mood that day. Seeing Songyu come out, Constable Luo finally escaped from Lady Calico's blinking eyes. He immediately turned to face Song Yu and cupped his hands in greeting. "Mister, you're awake." "Good morning, Chief." "I've come this morning to report good news to you," said Constable Luo. "I came too early, and you hadn't gotten up yet. I originally intended to wait until noon and come back to report the news to you, but your child servant insisted I come in to see the horse you bought, so I brazenly came in to wait for you." "It was a gift from someone." Lady Calico immediately corrected him upon hearing this. "Oh, a fellow Taoist from Fuking Temple in Qingcheng Mountain gave it to us. Our temples have been friendly for generations," Song Yu softly explained. "It was only sent here last night. It would have been impolite to refuse, so I had to shamelessly accept it." "I see." Constable Luo continued to look at the horse. "Beiyuan horses are good horses, and this horse also has a pure bloodline. However, it seems to have some congenital defects, which is why it has grown to be short and small in stature. It's good enough for us. Perhaps this horse will attain enlightenment together with you." Song Yu shook his head, knowing that such compliments from people were mostly just polite flattery. He just asked, "Is the good news you mentioned about catching the thief from yesterday?" "Thanks to you." Constable Luo just cupped his hands in thanks. Recalling it at the moment, he was both glowing with pride and also secretly amazed. Half of his glow was from excitement, and the other half from pride. The silver theft case from yesterday bore some similarities to the previous earth-traversing burglar case. Both mostly involved wealthy and noble families in the city losing large amounts of money. Such cases were no small matter. In the past, solving them within 3 to 5 months would have been good, and it was more likely they would become unresolved cases. But who could have thought that the culprits would be caught red-handed that very night? Even more exciting and gratifying was the fact that these thieves likely didn't just operate in Yidu. Upon further interrogation, it was likely they could also solve similar theft cases in Jianghu as well as the capital city. What an achievement. As for his amazement, one must mention the process of solving the case. Last night, after getting guidance from Song Yu, he divided his men into 2 groups, one to catch the jianghu performers and the other to search nearby hiding places. Both groups moved quickly. Although the temple fair was still going on, the thieves were already packing up to flee. Leave in just 1 day was quite cautious. Just as the constables were about to miss them, something miraculous happened. A thunderstorm in winter, a lightning strike in a clear night. It struck the thieves, leaving them half dead. And Constable Luo arrived. The thieves were caught with the stolen silver. If you went to the temple fair now, most people would probably still be talking about last night's affair with relish. Not just today, but tomorrow, and even in years to come, the legend of the Yuyuang deity punishing the temple fair thieves with divine lightning would perhaps still circulate. But was that really the truth? Did the Yuyuang deity really do it? Constable Luo didn't think so. This was the largest temple fair in Yizhu. Many small-time criminals flouting the law and fighting, jianghu people have been active these few days, yet did the Yuyuang deity strike anyone down? He didn't believe it was unrelated to Song Yu. It must have been that after Song Yu guided him, he foresaw the thieves escape and thus arranged for the lightning strike to stop them. Last night, when the county head magistrate asked him, he had said this. He still clearly remembered the shocked expressions of the county head magistrate and his advisor. Just like he had been shocked earlier. Nevertheless, he still needed to report this to Song Yu. Constable Luo recounted everything in detail, while stealthily observing Song Yu's expression. He saw Song Yu smile immediately upon hearing about the sudden winter thunderstorm. However, there was a profound meaning hidden in that smile, which he couldn't understand. He heard Song Yu say, "It's fine as long as they were caught." "We tried not to let you down." Constable Luo hurriedly lowered his head. After a pause, he added again, "I still need to interrogate those thieves, so I won't disturb your morning washing up." "Take care, Chief." Song Yu then went back to wash up. Afterward, he went to the bamboo grove to see the horse. The horse remained quiet, though it chewed constantly. There was some alfalfa beside it which was first-rate fodder. Constable Luo had probably brought it. "Heh," Song Yu shook his head and stroked the horse. "Do you want to stay at the Yaman's stable for a while or stay here? The Yaman has dedicated caretakers who may take better care of you than me. But if you stay here, I won't neglect you either." "All right, then stay here." After breakfast, more visitors arrived. They were Taoist priests, Qian and Yingfeng. The Taoist priests from Fuking Temple were inviting him to join them at the temple fair. Song Yu happened to have some things to buy as well, so he agreed to go with them. Thus, a group of real Taoist priests with a fake one mingled in, arrived at the streets and alleys near Yuyuang Temple. The surrounding voices were chaotic. The passers-by were all excited with an urge to talk or a desire to know more showing on their faces. It was as if they had just heard something incredible and were eager to clarify the details or to share what they knew. "What happened?" a middle-aged Taoist priest asked curiously. The younger Taoist priests, being more lively, saw people gathering to discuss spiritedly and moved over to listen. When they returned, they pieced together what they had heard. It said that the deity manifested. They said lightning struck the thieves. They said there were lost items. The middle-aged Taoist priest couldn't gain the whole picture, which was rather frustrating. However, it did provide him with a topic to discuss with Song Yu. "Did you hear about this manifestation at Yuyuang Temple?" It was just a casual question, but Song Yu unexpectedly nodded. "I just heard about it this morning." "Oh," the Taoist priests immediately perked up their ears. "Yesterday, a group of thieves used some esoteric methods to steal here. Later, they were discovered by Yidu constables who came to arrest them. Just as the thieves were about to escape, the Yuyuang deity manifested and struck them down with lightning." "Really? It shouldn't be fake." "Then it must be a real divine manifestation," the middle-aged Taoist priest quickly said. "We should go to the deity's temple to offer incense." "We should." Song Yu also went to offer incense again. However, the deity was no longer there today. Then they continued to stroll through the temple fair. The Taoist priests wanted to buy some daily necessities used in their temple. Of course, they were only buying those that were inconvenient to buy in the towns below the mountain. Song Yu bought a bell for the juju-bred horse and items like a small pot and a woven rush raincoat for future long travel. He also accompanied them in watching performances again. These Taoist priests had gone to visit friends and discuss Taoism the day before, so that day was their first time at the temple fair. Even if they came every year, it was only once a year. The younger ones were naturally excited, unwilling to leave as they stood with the crowd. Fortunately, the elders were also very patient and would usually either wait outside for them or join them in watching. Most of these jianghu performers also actually had some real skills. Whether honed through practice or through esoteric Taoist arts, they were real skills which were all worth watching. Especially these esoteric Taoist arts, which captivated the young Taoist priests. One should never assume Taoist priests from established temples were superior to these jianghu performers, because they appeared more honorable and legitimate. There was no inherent hierarchy in esoteric Taoist arts, and they were hard to acquire. The skills passed down through generations among jianghu performers were not necessarily found in temples. Even if they were, most people spent their lives mastering one skill, and performers among the people were not necessarily inferior to Taoist priests and monks in temples. In fact, if they could endure the asceticism and look for a temple to cultivate in, they could easily gain ordination certificates based on their skills. Only talent and hard work can create the difference. They wandered from morning until dusk like this. As the sky darkened, that day's temple fair was different from the day before, with many dark tents added. These tents, big and small, had people standing at the entrances collecting entrance fees. One could go in if one paid. The older Taoist priests had seen these before once or twice, but the younger ones hadn't. Thinking that the tickets were cheap after all, they went in to see curiosities one after another. Some tents had rare exhibits, like peacocks with jet black feathers, spotless white leopards, and giant lingzhi mushrooms said to be 1,000 years old. Some were genuinely eye-opening, while others were clearly scams to make money. There were frequent exclamations of surprise or ridicule from the visitors. Some tents had all kinds of displays of deformities and grotesque exhibits. Moving mummies, people with only the upper half of their bodies, and even human swine or grown-up malformed children. In the night, many people actually came in groups to see these. It was evident that they were both scared and thrilled by this kind of horror exhibition. The more scared they were, the more they liked it, and the more excited they became. Taoist priest Qian, being a woman, often found it terrifying and covered her eyes. Taoist priest Yingfeng often showed signs of discomfort, though he was a man, and wanted to leave early. After a while, Taoist priest Qian didn't want to enter any more tents. Song Yu, not wanting Lady Calico to see these, asked her to stay outside and look after Lady Calico. He remained calm himself, observing and pondering. He watched the exhibits and the visitors. He gained some insights by examining human nature and human hearts like this. The last tents were for obscene exhibits. They didn't know ahead of time, but after entering for just a few wen, they found candle-lit scenes filled with naked women. Of course, there weren't that many graceful curves or beautiful faces, just something for the male visitors to ogle. The visitors were almost all men. Some of these people would either secretly glance or come in groups of 2 or 3 pointing and whispering with indecent smiles. Those who entered by mistake and didn't know what was going on quickly left, while the bold ones even made a move as if to touch. Seeing a group of Taoists enter, many sneered. Taoist priests like these too. Where do you cultivate? Lust is really human nature, haha. The middle-aged Taoist priests, with their high level of cultivation, only responded with smiles and ignored them. The younger Taoist priests blushed and looked down, not daring to look. They regretted not asking what was inside beforehand and just wanted to leave quickly. Xianxia remained composed, mostly observing the visitors. This was the way of the times, and one couldn't judge these visitors' characters based on this. Whether they behaved boldly or reservedly could only reflect their recent characters and ways of thinking. If one asked what kind of people were these, the answer was that they were merely ordinary people. Chapter 36, Wishing to Send Plum Blossoms. Taoist priest Qian stood outside the tent, her gaze directed at the people coming out one by one. Some looked excited, some embarrassed, and some both excited and embarrassed, occasionally glancing down at the little girl beside her. Little girl stood next to her, not even half her height. Her little clothes were clean and tidy. Her eyes darted around, taking in the crowds of people, the novel sights, and the noisy places. However, her face lacked the rich expressions typical of normal humans. Perhaps she had not taken human form for long and not yet learned the full range of human expressions. When encountering something surprising, she would widen her eyes slightly at most. With a swish, the tent's curtain was lifted, and a group of Taoists emerged. Taoist priest Qian couldn't help observing everyone's expressions. Leading the group was senior Taoist brother Song. His expression remained unchanged, as if nothing could shock or disgust him and that there was nothing special. However, the expressions of her elders and fellow disciples behind him were somewhat different from before. The elders' faces showed a mix of awkwardness and embarrassment, while her fellow disciples were blushing deeply. Some were even mumbling softly about how they should have asked what was inside before going in, calling things unsightly. Both Qian and the cat were full of curiosity. Lady Calico leaned over and craned her neck with wide eyes, trying to peek inside the tent through the lifted curtain. Taoist priest Qian approached Taoist priest Yingfeng. "Senior brother, what's inside this tent?" Taoist priest Yingfeng's face turned even redder. Nothing much." "Then why that expression?" "Don't ask." "What on earth is it? So strange. You're making me even more curious with your look." Taoist priest Yingfeng stammered, still unable to answer. Even though Taoists were supposed to be unconstrained, how could he talk about such things in front of his junior sister without shame in these times? Then they heard Taoist priest Qian's master scold. What else could it be? Just those unsightly things? Why keep pressing? What's there to ask about? Oh, Taoist priest Qian couldn't help shrinking back. Thinking of the things she had seen in previous tents, such as stinking mummies and twisted, deformed human bodies, she still felt a bit nauseous. However, Songyu smiled and said to Taoist priest Qian, "The Tao follows nature. Why be concerned with the superficial?" As he spoke, he noticed Lady Calico trying to sneak inside. Swish, Songyu grabbed the back of her collar, pulling her back. Then he looked at the others and cupped his hands. "My fellow Taoists, it's getting late. We all should also return to Xianxia Temple. Then let us say goodbye here. Hope to see you again. Hope to see you again." Lady Calico also mimicked Songyu, saying "hope to see you again" in her childish voice. If not for being held by the collar, she might have seemed more formal. Since they were not heading the same way, they parted there. Taoist priest Qian looked away, feeling a bit regretful and a bit reluctant to part. Senior Taoist brother Song has the strongest willpower after all. The middle-aged Taoist priest was dazed and frowned in deep thought for a moment. Reflecting on the evening, Songyu indeed seemed more composed than everyone else, not just compared to the younger ones, but even more so than those who had seen such things before. Previously, it didn't seem significant, but looking back now, it showed his cultivation. The phrase, "the Tao follows nature," why be concerned with the superficial? Seemed directed at Qian and the other younger disciples, but it actually also preserved the dignity of the older ones. After a long while, he stopped frowning. "Sigh. Master, why do you sigh? Are you troubled?" "It's not sorrow, but realization." "Realization about what?" "I just felt that we've been studying Taoist classics and Taoist arts hard and been immersed in them all day. Yet we have forgotten the principle that the Tao follows nature. Ultimately, we actually still had to rely on fellow Taoist song to enlighten us." "What do you mean?" "All living things in this world contain the Tao. If you look with wise eyes, you'll find insights everywhere. If we limit our vision to Taoist classics and just think hard about their profound meanings, we would have neglected things outside the classics. When observing all the living things in the world, if you only look at the surface and do not think deeply, wouldn't that be inferior? The Taoist priests were not slow-witted either. They had some understanding earlier, but after hearing this, their minds immediately became clear. They then felt deeply ashamed and hurriedly cupped their hands toward the direction in which Song Yu had left. This single sentence of guidance could surpass 10 years of arduous contemplation for the ignorant. So what was really inside? Taoist priest Qian still couldn't help asking as she lowered her hands. \\\\asterisk. Just the desires of ordinary people. Desires, Lady Calico didn't quite understand the term. For example, when you're hungry, you want to eat. When you're thirsty, you want to drink water. When you're bored and have too much energy, you want to run around. When you see a mouse scurrying by or an insect flying in front of you, it's hard to resist the urge to catch them, Song Yu patiently explained. Desires are more or less similar. They are the most normal things. If you can think of ways to eliminate them, you'll feel free. If you can't eliminate them, you'll feel all sorts of discomforts, just like feeling hunger or thirst. How you handle your desires is the best reflection of your cultivation. I don't understand. Then let it be. Was it very fun inside? Why do you ask this? You seemed very happy when you came out. Lady Calico has sharp eyes. Was it very fun? It was the joy of gaining insights. What kind of joy? But Song Yu didn't answer, instead stopping in his tracks. After bidding farewell to the Fuking Temple Taoist priests, they had walked back to the liveliest part of the fair without noticing it. Besides the daytime performers and scallion pancake vendors, there were now opera singers, stilt walkers, dragon dancers, lion dancers, and molten iron fireworks performers. Molten lava-like iron at 1600 degrees Celsius was poured into a hollow mallet, and then a shirtless strong man struck it with force. Bang! A shower of sparks flew, resembling a cascade of stars and fireflies in the sky. This breathtaking beauty surpassed even modern fireworks. Song Yu couldn't help being entranced. He stayed there for a long time, watching as one tree of iron flowers bloomed after another. Only then did he lower his head, patting the head of the equally wide-eyed and entranced Lady Calico beside him, saying, "It's like seeing silver flowers falling in the night. One's heart is moved and gains insights, naturally feeling joy. Like stars falling down." Yes. Will they have this again tomorrow? I don't know. I want to come see it again tomorrow. All right. And the monkey show? All right. Can you buy me some mouse poison? Why? So I can kill all the mice and eat them without having to catch them myself. We'll see. The two figures, one large and one small, slowly walked away. Returning to the courtyard, they found another delight. Yellow plum blossoms in the courtyard had bloomed. Opening the door to the courtyard, they were greeted by a subtle fragrance in the night that vaguely enchanted their hearts. There was also an unreal figure wandering and singing under the tree, her voice cold and clear like the yellow plum blossoms themselves. The two complemented each other, creating a pure transcendent beauty rarely found in the mortal world for the moment. Lady Calico spoke in a soft voice. The flowers have bloomed. Song Yu only looked straight ahead and replied quietly, "Yes. These flowers are yellow." "Yes. But you painted red ones. You still remember." "I'm very smart." "Yes. Why did you paint red ones?" "I just painted on a whim." At that moment, the ghostly figure vanished with a sudden poof. Song Yu could only shake his head with regret. Beautiful things in this world never last long. He then brought out an oil lamp, intending to admire the flowers by night. In fact, yellow plum was what was known in his previous world as wax plum. Originally called yellow plum, it was said that Su Dongpo and Huang Shanggu saw that the petals of the yellow plum blossoms resembled beeswax, hence naming it wax plum. Another story says that Huang Tingjian thought the petals looked like they were made by a woman pinching wax, so it was later called wax plum. In any case, it was because its petals were curiously and beautifully translucent, like wax, that it earned this name. Since it also bloomed in the 12th lunar month, it was often written as lame later on. Wax plum and plum blossoms were different. Wax plum mostly bloomed in the cold, wintry 12th lunar month and was usually yellow, while plum blossoms mostly bloomed in spring and were mostly red. In modern classification, one belonged to the wax plum family, while the other belonged to the rose family. Later generations often couldn't tell whether the plums in ancient poems referred to wax plum or plum blossoms. Song Yu had not yet met a member of the literati, but if he met one composing poetry, he could at least get one line clarified. Actually, Song Yu rarely saw plum blossoms in his previous world, but he often saw wax plum, frequently scenting its fragrance. The fragrance of wax plum was a deeply ingrained memory for people from his previous world's hometown. The gardenias in spring, the champak flowers in summer, the osmanthus in autumn, and the wax plum in winter were fragrances frequently encountered each year. Even in the city, there was no need to worry. Once the season came, many elderly people would sell these fragrant flowers on the streets, either carrying them in baskets or pushing carts. Most fragrant was this wax plum. It was a sweet yet cold fragrance, sweeter than osmanthus but not as cloying. It was fresh and delightful, a scent embedded in old memories, the fragrance of home. Xianxia was really delighted and reluctant to go inside. Couldn't help but pick a flower and place it on Lady Calico's head. He couldn't help but pick another and bring it to his nose to sniff the scent closely. He couldn't help but stand for a long time under the plum tree, holding the oil lamp up to admire it closely. If it weren't for the inconvenient transportation and postal systems of this era, he would have picked a twig to send to the old Taoist at the temple to express his longing. Since it wasn't convenient, he had to let the twig remain on the branch, unwilling to pick it anymore. The oil lamp illuminated the wax plum blossoms, creating a unique sense of beauty. As the night grew deeper, the courtyard became colder. The wax plum blossoms all over the tree bloomed fully one by one in the chill air, becoming even more pure and beautiful. Xianxia felt very peaceful, not wanting to leave for the moment. If someone passed by outside, they could also enjoy the fragrance from within the courtyard at that moment. If they stopped, they would be able to hear the faint conversation within. "It's getting colder, Taoist priest." "Yes. Why don't you go to bed?" "I can't bear to go." "Pick a branch to look at indoors." "I can't bear to pick it either." Silence. "Why aren't you talking?" Lady Calico asked. "You aren't talking either," Xianxia replied. "I am watching you. I'm watching the flowers." "What are you thinking about?" "Some old friends." "Thinking of your master." "How did you know, Lady Calico?" "I'm very smart." "Indeed." At that moment, Xianxia did not just recall his master. This floral fragrance had come from the depths of his memories, so it naturally brought forth things from deep within his memories. In ancient times, there was a tradition of sending plum blossoms to express longing, but even if Xianxia picked the plum blossoms, he didn't know where to send them. Fortunately, he had Lady Calico for company. It alleviated much of the loneliness. Chapter 37. Another year passes unnoticed. In the wintry cold 12th lunar month, he warmed himself before the fire, stroked his cat, and admired flowers. The leisurely life in Yidu continued day after day. One more task was added to the daily routine: caring for the horse. Also, more expenses were incurred. Keeping a horse in the city was a hassle. Bayuan horses had strong digestive ability to begin with and could tolerate coarse feed very well. They did not need fine-quality feed unless heavily worked. However, since there was no grass in the city, he had to spend money to buy fodder, and it also required regular cleaning. Fortunately, after Xianxia talked to it, it remained quiet. Otherwise, it would have disturbed the neighbors, not just causing trouble but also making him feel guilty. The 12th lunar month was almost over. Soon, it would be Xianxia's first solo spring festival since coming to this world. A few days ago, the Taoist priests from Fuking Temple had asked a worshipper who lived in Yidu to bring him a letter inviting him to celebrate the new year at Qingcheng Mountain. They suggested arriving by the 28th if he was going, but after some thought, Xianxia decided not to go. Only he was unable to send a reply back to the Taoist priests of Fuking Temple, so he didn't know how long they waited in front of the mountain gate that day. Constable Luo had also come to invite him, but Xianxia declined tactfully. Even Prefect Yu had sent a letter. Xianxia turned down all the invitations. The wax plum blossoms lasted a long time, and they were still around on New Year's Eve. They welcomed the frost and stood proud against the snow, standing alone in the icy cold. In the courtyard, Xianxia counted the days. Lady Calico had transformed into human form, but still couldn't change her feline habits. She loved to walk along on top of the courtyard walls, rain eaves. The New Year's timing was fitting that year, with beginning of spring just a few days after. He remembered that he had arrived in Yidu after the beginning of autumn. After the beginning of spring, he would have spent more or less the 2 seasons of autumn and winter here. A voice came from atop the courtyard, wall above his head. "Are we leaving?" Xianxia looked up to see the little girl standing barefoot on the rain eaves of the courtyard wall. Despite the narrow and slippery surface, she stood there securely, looking down at him. This cat indeed had keen eyes. "I've told you not to walk on the rooftop when in human form. People will see you as a demon." "I'm a demon." "It will affect the neighbors." "The neighboring house on this side isn't occupied." "It's impolite." Okay, okay. Despite saying this, she showed no intention of coming down, continuing to stare at him. Are we leaving? After the beginning of spring. How long until the beginning of spring? A few more days. Why wait for the beginning of spring? The beginning of spring is the start of a year, full of vitality, and all living things revive, making it a good time to start a journey. I don't understand. Come down quickly. Bring me a ladder. You can clearly jump down. People will mistake me for a demon. Xianxia fetched a ladder for her and even handed her shoes. Lady Calico put on the shoes, feeling awkward. As she looked around the house, she couldn't help feeling somewhat reluctant to leave. 6 months felt like a long time to Kat. The place was already filled with her scent. What shall we do these few days? We need to invite the landlord over to inspect the house. What's inspecting the house? This is someone else's house which was rented to us. So when we return it, we need the landlord to come and check if we've damaged anything. And after inspecting, I need to go and say goodbye to the storyteller. And then, celebrate the new year. I know about celebrating the new year. Lady Calico is very wise. Indeed. This time, our journey will take us further and further away from home. I don't know what home is. Xianxia turned to look at her and was silent for a moment. He only saw pure clarity in her eyes. He fell silent again, not knowing what to say. The 4th day of the new year was the beginning of spring. The 5th day would mark exactly 6 months of renting the courtyard house. Xianxia thought it over. It was unreasonable to invite someone to inspect the house on the 1st day of the new year. On the 2nd day, according to jianghu customs, people visited graves and paid respects to deceased elders. After that, married women returned to their parental homes, and people also visited relatives and friends. People might be busy until the 5th or 6th day. Considering this, it was more convenient to do it before the new year. Thus, he decided to invite the landlord over that day. About 2 hours later, the landlord arrived. The landlord was a man in his 30s who dressed like a member of the literati. His name was Tang Zhang, and his style name was Xincheng. He had long heard that the tenant was a master, and he was also the only long-term resident in the courtyard house in the past few years. He had even come over to ask Xianxia for talismans before, so he naturally showed great respect now. Summoning up his courage, he briefly inspected the little courtyard house and found no damage. Mister, everything is in order. In that case, I will leave on the 5th day. I still have one more thing to ask. Please speak. Previously this courtyard, Tang Zhang looked around. Though he felt no discomfort, he was still somewhat fearful and spoke in a roundabout way. Previously this courtyard was somewhat unclean. I heard you have profound Taoist cultivation skills. I wonder if you have already eliminated it. Xianxia glanced at him and simply said, It's just a wisp of a remnant soul with an obsession. If you have no guilt, there's no need to fear. Xianxia had originally seen at a glance that the female ghost had never harmed anyone nor had the ability to. He was just a temporary resident here, too lazy to concern himself further. He hadn't bothered to find out about her story. It was only after living here for a long time, around the end of last month or early that month, that Constable Luo happened to mention it to him. The woman was originally a singer in the pleasure quarters who later married the eldest son of the Tang family. Her husband was this official Tang Zhang's elder brother. They were deeply in love, and their story won widespread approval at the time. However, the husband went to war in the north following a general he was well acquainted with, hoping to earn merit and protect the country. Yet contact was lost within a few years. The woman, left alone at home, grew increasingly melancholic from missing her husband and soon passed away. This story touched many people in Yidu for a time. This courtyard house belonged to the Tang family's eldest son as well as her. With the husband missing and the wife deceased, Tang Zhang, as their only remaining relative, naturally took possession of the courtyard house. Unfortunately, the woman's obsession ran too deep, and her ghost lingered, making the place uninhabitable and unable to be rented out. Tang Zhang was also helpless. Xianxia had been moved by the story when he first heard it. He was touched by this rare, genuine love and the enduring obsession that transcended life and death in a feudal era. He also pondered about how the story was different from what he had initially thought. The woman's ghost hid well and was difficult to find. She would indeed be challenging for many folk masters who specialized in exorcisms. However, Yizhu was large, and there were capable people, yet she had stayed here for years. Xianxia had originally thought there was some hidden reason like in the plots of novels, or perhaps the woman had a special status while she was alive, or perhaps something else was involved. Yet he had never thought that the reason she had remained here for years without being dispatched was just due to the widespread sympathy and pity she evoked in the local society. He was so used to thinking in complex ways that, for a moment, he couldn't even believe it was just due to the simple and pure kindness of people. Song-yu suddenly understood, finding it marvelous. He realized clearly again that this was a real world. Though backward and ignorant in many ways, it was also warm and colorful. Though ancient and modern times differ, the human hearts are interlinked. Regarding the woman's life story, Song-yu knew less than the neighbors. Regarding the impact of her ghost's existence, he was less affected than the neighbors. The neighbors magnanimously tolerated her. Even Constable Luo, who lived opposite the courtyard, chose to turn a blind eye despite his character and duty. Song-yu had no reason to eliminate her. Tang Zhang was immediately deeply disappointed, but still reluctant to give up. Is there a way to remove her? Song-yu did not answer, only shook his head at him. Sigh, Tang Zhang sighed deeply, waving his hands. Forget it, forget it. I've tried everything over these few years, I accept it. Let her stay here. Farewell, mister. Wishing you, in advance, that the new year will go as you desire. I will also wish you an auspicious new year. The wooden door creaked open and shut. Song-yu sat in the courtyard for a while longer, until dusk approached. He only returned inside when he had to start cooking. Standing on a stool, he took down a piece of cured meat and a section of sausage from the rafters, as well as an air-dried fish. He heated water to wash everything thoroughly. The preserved meat had been smoked, requiring him to scrape off the black soot from the surface with a knife. The scraping sound evoked a festive feeling. Taoist priest, why aren't you eating vegetables today? It's to celebrate the new year. Right. Lady Calico had turned back into a cat at some point without him noticing. While waiting for Song-yu to wash the ingredients and fetch water, she followed after him, running here and there for no reason. As Song-yu lit the oil lamp, casting swaying shadows as he busied around, she chased and pounced at his shadow on the ground, very absorbed in her play. Lady Calico, help me stoke the fire. Go find some clothes, transform into human form, and help me stoke the fire. Why? We should cook the New Year's Eve family reunion dinner together. Right, the little cat immediately ran off. Smoke spiraled upward from kitchen chimneys, and the city was ablaze with lights. Every household in the city had lit lanterns, and from outside came the sound of musical instruments. The courtyard gradually filled with the aroma of cooking. When the sausage was cooked, Song-yu patiently sliced it thinly. Seeing the little girl stoking the fire before the stove staring longingly out of the corner of his eye, he paused and felt touched. So he smiled, and when he sliced the sausage until only a small bit at the end was left, he stopped cutting. He picked it up and handed it to her. Lady Calico came close to sniff it and looked up at him. Is this for me? Yes, but we haven't started the meal yet. Kids can eat first. Oh. Song-yu couldn't help looking nostalgic. Do you know, Lady Calico, when I was little, every New Year when the adults were busy cutting vegetables, I always loved to hang around them. As they cut, they'd always leave a piece and hand it to us, and I always thought it tasted better than what was served at noon on the table the next day. Song-yu didn't seem to expect her response, lost in his memories. Recalling it now, that time had been so joyful and happy. Today, he passed it on to Lady Calico. Not long after. On the table were a bowl of sausage, a bowl of cured meat stir-fried with garlic sprouts, a bowl of dried fish, and half a pot of soup stewed with the pork foot he had bought that morning. It wasn't lavish, but more than enough for the two of them. The two figures, one large and one small, sat opposite each other by the lamp. The oil lamp only illuminated a very narrow area, casting circular patterns on the coarse pottery bowls. No one spoke, eating in silence. Song-yu didn't feel lonely. After so many years in the Taoist temple, it had always been just him, his master, and the old crested Mina, and he was long used to it. Before long, fireworks started outside. Another year had passed unnoticed in this world.